This is FleurBrun coming to you today with a new topic of discussion. Check it out. Check it out. Oh, sorry. I'll wait until a few people check in. We have a beautiful discussion. And as you hear, we hear the rainforest behind me. Oh, look. Sorry, I saw inappropriate. Hey, Angelina. So I wanted to get in discussion about obviously the Amazon. Hey, Hudson, Mount Vernon in the house. Peace to the east, the west, the north, and the south. And as you hear the beautiful, beautiful rainforest, the actually sounds. These are actually sounds from when I was in Brazil. So if you listen, these are actually the sounds. As many of you know, I was in Brazil last month, and this is reminiscent of the sounds I would hear every evening when I was going to sleep, when I was staying in the middle of the jungle. So wait until a few of you check in. If you check in, just put a like on the video. I'd appreciate it. Just as respect is coming in the house. It's a very serious conversation and very poignant. And I feel it definitely relative to my connection to my ancestors that are directly from Brazil. So check it in. You had a crazy dream? Okay, Hudson, tell me about it. A lot is going on planetarily. Okay. Beautiful. Do you hear that beautiful? This is, for anyone stepping in the room, many of you know I was in Brazil for a month. Connecting to my ancestors, my direct ancestors. And if you haven't seen the video yet, I talk about releasing my grandmothers from the etheric prison that they were in over Brazil, in a little interim, a little spiritual jail over Brazil. So check on in. Listen to those beautiful sounds. These are actually sounds when I was staying in Brazil. I recorded sounds in the evening, and this is exactly what I would hear in the evening. So I love that you get a chance to hear from someone who was actually in Brazil, in Bahia, in northern Brazil, where the forest fires were occurring. So if you listen to it, you hear the harmony, the beautiful nature, everything symbiotic with one another. And I'm going to get in a very real conversation, and it's going to be very uncomfortable for most to hear, okay? But it will be beautiful. It's coming from a direct connection to this beautiful homeland that my ancestors roamed in. And there will be some truths revealed that everyone needs to hear, okay? So I'm going to turn down our wonderful Amazonian music. And again, this is authentic. This is an authentic, this is authentically from when I was staying in Bahia. You can hear, this is what I heard every night. Many of you got a chance to actually witness me and be with me. And many of you felt like you were with me at the time. But this is what you hear during the evenings, especially after rain. This was something that was amazing and so healing and so beyond my comprehension. Okay.
Low battery.
And it's right on in. So for all those checking in, please put a like on the video if you're checking in. I wanted to touch on the Amazonian fires. And I'm going to have a rational discussion with everyone. And again, for those coming in who are unaware, some of you are newer to my channel. Many of you know that I was actually in Brazil for a month. And I had obviously my ancestors had come directly, and many of your ancestors actually came from Brazil, the tip of South America. I've also discussed the archaeological facts and information and herstory that was able to be uncovered, that the majority of brown people that were supposedly part of the slave trade weren't actually extradited from Africa. They were actually brought from South America. That's why there's a high amount of people of color there, because they were always there. So with the migration and the extraditing of people,
Low battery.
they extradited them actually from South America, and they distribute them downward towards Central and North America. Okay, so the majority of our people are actually from South America. Most people of color in the States have kin to our ancestors. Many of you know that my family had migrated from South America as one of the reasons I felt connected to going back home and having a super kinetic relationship with myself, my higher self, and being able to, hey, Jose. Yes, please put a like on the video when you come in the room, please. I appreciate it. And like I said, YouTube has been very kind since I've been getting likes. They allow my videos to actually to be go unhinged for the most part until I start bringing up things that are just a little too piloted. So we're going to get into real conversation. So the Amazonian fires. Now, why I think it's interesting that most are just becoming aware of this, I'm going to share something that most of you did not know. For the last 10 years, there has been a spike in fires in the Amazon for a long time. This is what's interesting to me, and this is where I think social media and a lot of these celebrities are full of it. They're full of ish. The Amazon has always been burning since the colonization. The Amazon has been raped, pillaged, destroyed, and utilized. I had a chance to witness places where there are car companies and other companies that are utilizing forests, growing rubber trees, just a forest full of rubber trees, and they utilize it and basically grow these beautiful trees and murder them daily. There is mass farming, and I've disclosed to you that mass farming is destroying our agricultural environment. The fact of the matter is, many people are unaware that this isn't new. The difference is now with social media, and those who are acting as if they care haven't ever cared. I've been to my country. It's a country that my ancestors actually came from, and many of yours, where people are being utilized and destroyed. The women and children are raped and used daily, just like our mother trees. When you go into these beautiful, beautiful, serene areas where you see our grandmother trees standing erect and you feel the kinetic energy and you feel the divine connection to them, you realize that you're standing amongst Mother Tiamat's children, her direct lineage. And the fact of the matter is, it is a lie. All that you're seeing on social media is a lie. It is propaganda that is basically spoken from people who don't care about the country. Brazil is the most amazing, amazing, rich, resourceful country that is being raped daily. The people that are coming from other countries are parasites. They come there to rape the women and the children. They rape the resources, and then they want to come to you on social media acting as if they care. The rainforest has been burning, family, for a long time. It's been over-processed. Now, if you know anything about agricultural, what goes on with agriculture and with forests, the reason why the rainforest is so beautiful and why we consider it to be the lungs of the earth is because of the moisture and the humidity that allow for the forest to flourish. When you have deforestation, you destabilize the oxygen, the moisture inside of the forest. What allows the forest to be so moist is the coverage. So when you have trees together with trees and family of trees, they create shade, and they also build moisture, which they get from the Atlantic. When the Atlantic breeze comes in and the beautiful breeze comes in from the ocean, it goes inside the forest and it holds there. And as it's absorbed in the roots and the soil, the beautiful rich soil of those beautiful trees, it's expelled in moisture and the condensation falls down daily. That's why we call it a rainforest. When you deforestize and you have mass production of a burn, of terrain in order to create cattle lands to allow for cattle to be reared, you cause a ripple of imbalance. The imbalance that you cause is because these trees protect each other. It's like me, you, and all of our sea stars and sun stars standing in a beautiful circle. And we're standing with our heads together, down together, as you see the picture of my niestas and Nora. Big up to Nora and my niestas. You see in my pin, you see during my conference, we all stood next to Mother Tree and we always honor her. We stood down and we put our heads down. When you do that, you create a kinetic energy of protection, a shield. But as people have been murdering these trees, these disgusting non-human beings that go into countries and colonize it and destabilize and destroy it, then you cause the instability of the ecosystem, an imbalance. Why I share this with you, family, is because what is not being told is that this has been an occurrence for a long time. When I went to Brazil, when you see how the women and children are treated, it makes sense that they wouldn't care about the mother tree and the grandmother tree. There is a lack of respect for the matriarchy, and it shows up in what they do to nature and how they destroy it and how they use her and don't even appreciate her resources that make them rich, filthy rich, rich beyond your comprehension. The interesting part about this, family, is that those fires are not being caused by people setting them ablaze, even though the government has made it a point to be against the nativos, the indigenous, that are living in those forests. The very beautiful, the stewards, the nature stewards of that ecosystem that have been living there since the beginning. Okay? So what's interesting is that most people are blaming the government. It isn't the government that's causing the deforestation, it's her herself. There is underground caverns of magma that have been broken. So many of you don't know, when I was there was a major earthquake in Chile. There was another earthquake on the other side of Peru. During these earthquakes, there are volcanoes that are dormant, two above, I think there's 3 above and a couple below. The earthquakes cause a destabilization of the magma that's actually in some of these dormant or some semi-active volcanoes. That magma was let loose and it started to move, tunneling amongst and under the lines of the rainforest. Part of what's going on, family, is twofold. It isn't by others. Remember, the government wouldn't burn what they want to use. They don't want to necessarily burn the rainforest. They rape her. They need her to be standing. They need her leaves and her energy and her medicines to use her for pharmaceuticals to hurt you and yours. They wouldn't burn her. What is happening now, family, is the beginning stages of the pole shift. We've discussed this. We've had several earthquakes. Now, what many of you don't know, when I was there, and it made sense after the fact that I left, is that I was getting burning in my feet. A lot of burning in my feet. My feet were swollen, remember I told you? Now, when I left, I healed my feet, and a lot of people were feeling it because of the earth is going through a shift, and we're starting to feel aspects of it physically. Whenever there's super amount of seismic activity, it will affect us from below and pull it up. So it will affect our feet and our legs, our lower lumbar. When I left, my girlfriend, big up to Paola, which many of you know were with me in Brazil. She's still there. She was feeling ill for 2 weeks. She felt the earthquakes and the shakes when she was there. They're not telling you that there's a volcano that's active, that is starting to rumble, and the magma is underneath the ground, causing for the trees to be incinerated from roots up. That's what's happening. So it isn't happening from the outside. It isn't the government who's burning up the forest like they do sometimes. It is nature itself resolving itself. What I will tell you, family, will cause you sadness. When you rape a woman, when you destroy her children, when you disallow for her freedom or for her to thrive or for her to have peace of mind, she will destroy everything. She will take it into her own hands and said, F you, you nasty parasites. You want to rape me? I will kill everything. So you will have nothing to ever take from me again. Watch that scene from Beloved with Oprah Winfrey, when she was willing to kill her own seeds, her own babies, because the master was going to rape them. Master was going to kill those babies by killing their souls and their spirits. This is Mother Tiamat's ultimate sacrificing for the greater and biggest and greater good. During these forest fires, one thing you will understand is there's a germination that happens during forest fires. The forest will relive, she will thrive again. The seeds will now be into a more phosphorus, more fruitful soil that will allow for trees and nature to grow back again. But for this reason, family, if you're raping and killing and disregarding, she will take everything away from you, so you won't have anything to ever utilize and try to take from her again. You're killing her. You're basically destroying her. So now she's taken it in her hands and she said, I won't give you anything. You won't be allowed to use me. You won't be allowed to flourish, and your ancestors and your children won't be allowed to live here and have and use my resources, because I will take it all away. Remember, during a pole shift, everything flips in poles. What was once forest and rich and magnanimous and greens will now shift into desolate, barren areas where there isn't any life left. So if many of you know, in ancient Kemet or ancient you call it Kemet, I can't even remember, Egypt. It's amazing. I can remember Kemet, and this is the Convergence. Welcome to the Convergence. Anyone coming in the door, please put a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. So whenever you see that, usually if many of you did your studies, your proper studies and your proper diligence to research ancient Egypt, you would realize that the Nile ran in the other direction, and that there were trees and tropics where those standing pyramids are today. That used to be a very flourishing, very tropical, very reminiscent of the beautiful South American rainforest. When we go through a pole shift, everything will go in inversion. So what was tropical will become barren and dry, and sand will stay there. And what was normally sand or doesn't have any life will end up becoming moist and rich and fruitful with greeneries. So basically what's happening now is we're having the pole shift occur. Now the magma that's going underneath the ground is, to my knowledge, what is causing the incineration from the trees from bottom up. No one's talking about that. I actually talked, big up to my homie in Central America, who's a seismic researcher, who was the first person who alerted me that the trees were not being burnt by outsiders. Sometimes that happens, but because the magma is moving due to the earthquakes that many of you don't know has happened in South America. Chile, we had a big earthquake when I was there. We had another earthquake in, I think, Ecuador, Peru at the same time. Paula, who is having physical symptoms of seismic activity. Now, how do I know this? If many of you know, my family also comes from Martinique. Martinique is in the Caribbean. If you know the history of my island, you also know that we had one of the biggest eruptions that killed a lot of my family members in the 1920s, I believe, or 1930s. Why some of my family survived is because they had some interesting preamps physically that alerted them to move just like the animals do. What you'll notice a lot of times, whenever there's a heightened amount of seismic activity, animals will react biologically. They'll have certain cues. People have them as well. When my aunt talks about before the earthquake, she says, before the eruption of the volcano, she said they started to feel nauseous. She started to feel dizzy right before. Her feet and legs started to burn. And that's why some of them left, because they felt like the environment was causing them pain. She also said that she was starting to get like, like a ringing in the ear that was burning them as well. This was 2 to 3 days prior to the eruption that killed many people in Martinique at the time. Paula, who's located still in Bahia, remember that was my homie that we were traveling together when I was in Brazil for the month. She was getting physical symptoms and felt the earthquakes during the time that the incineration of the forest began. There is a lot of shifting and shaking, and I would not cry for Argentina. Don't cry for me, Argentina. Remember that song? The truth is I never left you. Okay? So listen, the reason why you shouldn't be sad is because Mother Tiamat has much more resources. She is quite savvy, and she's been here way before most of us were created on her planet. The forest will relive and revive itself, but it's interesting that many people are upset about the trees. When I did a lecture on trees about 30 years ago, family. When I was a young sea star in New York City, I did a lecture. And why I find it very amusing that everyone's acting as if they're sad about the trees, one of the things that you've known me for a while is why don't I use toilet paper? For the last 12 years, FleurBrun hasn't used any toilet paper, and I only use recycled paper to utilize for everything. I use this, bamboo. When I did research over 12 years ago, I found out that we're wiping our behinds with the ancestors that we call our mother Tiamat abroad, our forest family. Every time that you utilize paper, every time that you wipe your behind or blow your nose on paper, you are basically co-signing to the abuse of our family, to the abuse of our trees. It is necessary for you to start to make a change in the way that you see the resources that you're utilizing that are hurting our forests in every way. And 30 years ago, I was a young girl making a wonderful call out for people to understand that we were doing things that were hurting our planet, and that the trees that were being killed were trees that were older than most of our ancestors that have even been on this earth. And that there would be a consequence in the future that would supersede anything that you could ever imagine. I sat there in front of 200 people, and many of them thought to themselves that I was, basically like drawing too much conclusions about the trees. Maybe that my feeling about it was too unrealistic, or too futuristic. Like, why would you have to worry about toilet paper? Why would you worry about that? For the fact of the matter that every one of these people talking publicly, and it's interesting, and I have to call them out, they don't recycle. I go every day, and I obsess with my recycling. Big up to my daddy. Rest in power, Daddy. My father was super, super duper recycling. He came from an island, and he appreciated and he understood that we are the stewards of our planet. And he showed me as a little girl that everything that I utilize should definitely be recycled, and it should be honored, and it should be composted. That was my father. I make sure that I recycle everything, and when I walk outside and I see the majority of the populace throwing plastic bottles in the garbage, throwing all of their stuff all over the ground, and then they want to cry about the forest, I think it's hypocritical. I think if you're not recycling and you're crying about the forest, you're the problem. I think if you're wiping your behind with paper and not realizing that every time you do that, you're disrespecting our planet, you're the problem. Oop, hold on, baby. What's the matter? I'm live. I've got my little one. And every time that you build your decks, and I'll tell you the story about, I don't like to have my little one on camera. I'll tell you about the story about the first time I had the most amazing telecommunication with my tree family. And this has been many years. That's why you hear me. My name is FleurBrun. FleurBrun means brown flower. And there's a reason why I have that name. So many years ago, if you know, I had my farm. Many of you know I farmed a lot of my food and my goods, and I was a recycler of everything, and a composter. Many of you know me on the CB as Compost Chick, because I compost everything. So my husband at the time, I think I just had my first baby, wanted to build a beautiful deck. Oh, it was beautiful. I had the most beautiful view of the forest. In the back, I had 3 acres of land, and I grew everything. He was going to build this most amazing, amazing deck. So as the good gentleman's coming, the contractor's coming, he's bringing this wood. It's the best wood. And he finally does the final stages of my deck. It looks amazing. So here I am, in my divine state, happy as a new mother, sitting on my deck. And I looked at the trees across, and I spoke to them, and I said, I want to know how you feel about the state of things going on. I want to communicate with you. Do you know what they told me? He said, we see that people are sitting on our skeletons of our ancestors, of our mothers, and our kin. The very deck, the very wood that was created to create my deck, my beautiful deck that I thought was amazing, they had to look and acknowledge that we were building things on their skeletons of their ancestors. That when we built our houses of wood, that was the bones of their family. That every time that we thought we were being progressive and that we were being amazing in these beautiful big wooden houses, it was a constant reminder of how far removed we were and how we utilized their very bones and garnished it in front of them to remind them of the death of their family. I don't believe anyone who's upset about the Amazon forest fire, because I don't look at what you say. I don't look at what you promote. I could care less if you put hashtags. I see what people do. I see how they disregard nature. I see how they sit there and they utilize water, food and water and have little or no connection to where waste goes. I also acknowledge that the same people who sit there and promote Save the Rainforest are the very parasites that utilize all of the goods and the resources for Brazil for their very neglectful, vampiric pockets to be lined. We're not in a war against ourselves. We're in a war against those who haven't any connection to the very zest or the very being that we're living on. Mother Tiamat has taken a stance, and she won't allow you to rape her anymore, or her children. She will take off everything that you use and you parasite off. So you will have nothing. You'll be barren like those places in Europe that just have stones and are barren and have no fruit, no vegetable, anything. These beings that are utilizing South America and Africa and parts of Southeast Asia for building a heightened amount of pharmaceuticals that your children and yourselves are addicted to, the very beings that sit there and kill and create a forest of rubber trees that love each other and have to watch as you kill every single one of them. And I'm going to bring up something else that's going to bother some of you. Two of the main reasons why I don't believe anyone cares about the greens on this planet, about the nature on this planet, is because we have agendas running that everybody is down with and participating with. If you are down with the vegan movement, you are down with the killing of our plant life. If you are down with corpsetarianism and eating a massive amount of cattle, you are down with the deforestation of our plant life. They're both the same on opposite ends. A vegan who wants to kill greens daily to have consumption, but has zero connectivity to the very plants that they kill, has just as much responsibility and culpability as someone who eats mindless amount of flesh of animals that are abused and caged and slaughtered on land that was taken from our tree family. You are all culpable for what's occurring on this planet. I won't let you sit here and smile and act as if you care about our forests, because not one of any of these people have ever taken a stance, have ever done anything personally in their life to protect or be a good steward of this planet. If every time you throw out a plastic bottle and you aren't recycling, you are the problem. For every time that you sit here and you create paper waste and have no culpability of where that goes and what life was taken for you to write on the very paper that you consider to be part of your normal daily staple of life, you are the problem. For all of those who sit here and mindlessly consume food without knowing or connectivity to the very lives, including the green lives that are murdered daily. Mass farming is an abuse to Mother Nature. It is natural. We used to consume what we picked ourselves from the tree. We didn't kill the tree. We never deforested the forest. We didn't rape and pillage and didn't replace what we took. We're living on a very dastardly plane of existence with beings who are very far removed from anything that is a proper balance to nature. If you truly cared about the rainforest, you would care about the trees in your general neighborhood. If you really cared about the fires occurring, you would make sure that you are not one of the mass consumers of flesh and animals to the point where you are supporting these ranches, which basically burn and clear these fields just for your very consumption. If you really cared about the planet, you would grow your own fruits and vegetables, and you wouldn't pull the root of your collard greens and your spinach, and you wouldn't kill your plants in order to consume them and act like you're all high and mighty because you're a vegan because you don't hurt anything. You're killing our plant life, and they know who you are, and they see who you are, and you are just as diabolical as anyone else. Start taking responsibility for what you do. You can't change what others do on this planet. You can't even make a wave in how others treat nature, but you can make a total revolution within your own very being. I love Mother Tiamat. I have always been a proper steward to her in my actions, my deeds, my thoughts, my spirit, and the way I rear my children. So if anyone could be a testament or send this message, it would very well be me. I just say, if you care about the rainforest, instead of caring about something outside of your perimeter, start caring about the trees outside of your house. Start caring about the very flowers that you pick and the dandelions that you kill daily, you're colonizing your very yards. Start caring about the nature in your general area before you start caring about something outside of your area. You can't change what you don't even acknowledge. And if you aren't acknowledging that every time you wipe your behind with paper, the skeleton of the trees, the very trees that you say that you're trying to support, I beg to differ. So I just wanted to say this to everyone. I absolutely am excited to see how this beautiful transition and this upgrading of Mother Earth will turn out. And there isn't any tears for the trees that are lost, because just for this conversation, and finally, after 30 years ago, a FleurBrun, a young lady in college who was talking to deaf ears, I'm grateful that those ears finally see what I was talking about coming to life. If you don't appreciate something, you will lose it. And you all deserve to lose Mother Tiamat's fruits because you were involved in her decimation. So I just say this all to say, just be balanced in how you interact with nature. Be appreciative of the fruits of what she brings to you daily. And make sure when you walk out the door and you see those beautiful trees, be grateful you see them, because there may be a time they aren't here anymore to give you oxygen, to protect you, to give hospice and shelter to those animals who also help for your environment to stay balanced. It's more than just about trees burning. It's about caring about them when they're here. We have a tendency to put so much emphasis on the dead after things are destroyed. If we appreciated them before that, maybe we wouldn't see the destroying of them. So I take this as a beautiful transformation. I think cameras are going off already. It'll turn out beautifully well. And if you like the content of this video, put a like on the video. And I don't want to chastise anyone, but I don't just talk about it, I be about it. And I always invite people, since I get criticized or just looked at very weird because my recycling bin is huge, and I was excited that I have my recycling bin is filled to the till. It's almost as tall as me, and I'm almost 5'9". And my garbage bag once a week, I have a garbage bag that literally this is the size of my garbage bag. About 3 of these is my garbage bag per week. 3 of these is my garbage bag. I recycle everything. I am really respectful and honoring that if I use something, it's only right for me to recycle it so that I don't contribute to the decimation of our planet. And I suggest you do the same. Start utilizing things like bamboo. Start utilizing things that are more sustainable and recyclable. Be mindful and teach your children to be proper stewards, because as a parent, I feel it is your due diligence to teach your children to respect and to honor the very nature that sustains them on this planet. By doing so, you allow for healthier reactions. Because if you've been to Brazil, I've been to Brazil, and many of you who've been to Brazil know this, and many of our Brazilian, big up to our Brazilian family on here, I've never seen a group of people that are so far removed from nature. They live in the most beautiful terrain. When I flew over Brazil, and all I could see is amazing, amazing mountains and green, so plush. Every tree had a story. You can feel the connectivity to the tree, to your soul. They were so amazing. But you have people living in that country that are parasites. They are parasites, and by the very nature of how they treat the women, children, and women of color, which is even worse, it's worse. How they treat the women of color is a detail of why it's worse. How they treat the women of color is a detail of why the forests are burning. So however it's burning, however it shows up, it's part of the karmic debt that comes from living far removed and not respecting of what you've basically taken advantage of. There shouldn't be anyone alive making those hashtags that doesn't have a form of realization that the very hashtag that they're making, unless they're making this unless they are in their daily lives participating in self-sustaining behavioral patterns and honoring the very trees that they say that they want to protect, it's all a lie. It's all smoke and mirrors. So I just say, just be mindful. It's always the case and so on. I wasn't sad when I saw the fires because I knew about it previously, and I know that it's necessary to remove what people are raping. So if they're raping the women, remove the women. If they're raping the land will be removed. In order to show or to teach others to be respectful and appreciative, the very things that they've been taking advantage of or taking for granted will be the very things that's removed from them. And then they will understand that if you really care for someone or something, you should really respect them, and you should really appreciate them, and you should try to take care of them and nurture them. And that goes for just not even just land, for the very people that you're around. So you felt at home in Peru? Oh, Cusco, Peru. It's absolutely beautiful. And if you haven't got a chance to visit South America, if you feel like driven to do it, and there's other places that are just as beautiful. If you haven't got a chance to visit there, I would say it's the most amazing greenery and just the connectiveness to the trees beyond compare. And there are places in Africa that are reminiscent of this, that's why I say. And for most of the indigenous, big up to my indigenous or my nativos that are actually native Brazilians before Brazil was even named Brazil. Native South Americans, do know your lineage resides there. And you have a stake in the rainforest because many of you were migrants that were brought here to the northern part of America from South America. So by the nature of what's going on there, it does affect you on a biochemical level. It does affect you in a very lineage way. So it's very necessary for you to also take some responsibility for upholding your previous home. Okay, so you're part Brazilian. Everybody's part Brazilian because many of the brown people were all migrated from there. The lie was that they were taken from Africa. That was a lie. They were taken from South America, and that's why the majority of people in Brazil are all brown, because they were actually there already. Okay, so history is always history is always rewritten by those who dominate and conquer. So it should be something you accept, knowing that is the general consensus of all history. remember, it's his story. It isn't her story. It is his story. So just remember, all history is rewritten by those who've conquered. And remember, that's the reason why they burned a lot of the ancient texts in the Mayan civilization, the ancient Incans, detail of who and what was there, because it goes along with the form of, infiltrating and also taking over the basic culture and instituting your own belief system in order to, take over. So I always say it ain't his story. So I say, big up to everyone who really cares about the rainforest. I know you do. And I wanted to just say, I just wanted to share my thoughts with the Amazon. It isn't new. It's happened for many years. And like I said, 30 years ago, a younger version of FleurBrun spoke about this in front of a group of a lecture hall of 200 plus people. And at the time, there were very few who were receptive to my findings and also to my call for us to start to make a change then. And this is over 30 years ago. And I'm grateful to have actually witnessed the things that I said would come to be, but also understand that by being aware, and you can only change what you're aware of, by making people aware of the insidiousness of their very behavior or their lack of respect for nature, allows for them to have a better connectivity and also to make changes in their daily lives. And I always tell people, being a unethical vegan is just as bad as being an unethical carnivorous person. They're both one and the same, the opposite end of the same behavior. It's definitely abuse. If you pull from the root of any plant to kill it for consumption, you're just as culpable as killing and slaying a horse or a cow or a chicken to eat it. I think it's one and the same. And this is someone who sticks her hand in the soil every single day. This is someone who's grown all her plants from seedlings, and I take love and care for my seedlings as if they're my children. And there wouldn't be any way that I would want to kill my children by pulling their roots out for my consumption of my children in my home, my earthly children. And it's the same for any animal. I wouldn't be willing to kill and slay an animal and a friend raised on my farm to be my friend and for me to feed them daily, to slay them and murder them and to put them on a dish of my children. I wouldn't do that either. So, what is considered a weed? You got to take in consideration, who told you those are weeds? And why do you think they're weeds? And why do you think there's a push for everyone to have AI gardens and cut their grass and create these artificial lawns that are unhealthy with pesticides killing weeds? The very thing, weeds actually help the oxidation and actually make your soil more phosphorus, more rich. By pulling dandelions is chaotic. Actually, the mass murders of dandelions is why most of you get hay fever. There's such a disconnect from the things they teach you. They put so much mind control programs out there telling you that dandelions make your yard look ghetto. If you have dandelions over you have to have these artificial looking green grass that is genetically homogenized, that causes all kinds of breathing and aspiration, respiratory issues. They also don't interact well with the bees and the ants. They'll tell you all this. When you go into a forest, a beautiful forest, there isn't anything that overgrows. There isn't anything out of harmony. Everything grows masterfully, without any alteration. The inception by the human, by the colonizing human, and I don't even think they're humans, already know, by the colonizing humans on this planet that create these systems of beliefs that are not even archaic, that are vampiric, that are abusive, and then we take these on as our own and then we practice them. It's just as bad as being in a religious sect, like a cult. When you look at a beautiful garden, my wild garden that I grew over a year was so amazing. People would walk in my raspberry bush. I grew 1/3 of an acre of raspberries. Listen to this, family. A third of an acre of raspberries that I used to let the babies go in every day, especially when they were little, and they pick directly from the vine, their raspberries, and pop it right in their mouth because mommy didn't have to put pesticides. You know why? Because we had daddy long legs. Daddy long legs were my pesticide. Why? It's because the daddy long legs that walked on my beautiful raspberry bushes would kill all the mites that like to eat the raspberries and my leaves. So by keeping a healthy, balanced homeostasis in my garden, I allowed for the spiders to thrive. I understood that they were necessary to make my garden flourish. And I would let them do that. I would allow certain ants, red ants, kept all the other insects away, especially the beetles that like to eat your grape leaves. I would let the red ants stay around in piles because I knew that they would be my natural pesticide to other things that weren't cohesive because they didn't hurt my plants. The ants were actually symbiotic with the plants, allowing for them to grow and not be overtaken by other parasites that would disturb my garden. We have to get back to a sense of balance. Yes, please put a like on the video if you're here. I appreciate it if you do so. Thank you, Jose. We just have to get back to a sense of balance. And I always encourage each one of you, and you can live in an apartment and be a gardener, and you can live on land and be a gardener. It does not take a lot. But I always encourage you to put your hands in the soil, and you will have so much more of a connectivity to what earth and what life is based on you being a participant and a steward rather than being an observer and just a chaotic parasite. If you eat greens every day, I suggest you grow them from babies. And I want to see if you're able to kill your babies. You can take a leaf of your greens and you can ask for permission. Whenever I get collards, I don't pull them up from the ground. I take the leaves and I ask for permission from my garden. Whenever we have spinach, I wouldn't pull it up. You have broccoli, and then you have the cucumbers. So you make sure you ask permission from your garden, and they're your children. So you shouldn't want to kill your children if you're growing them and rearing them from babies. That's why I say I know there's a lot of vegans out here are very, very detached, very detached. They sit here and they advocate veganism and they're wearing leather shoes. They advocate veganism, but by the very nature of the things that they do in non-recycling, they are absolutely anti to nature. They consume massive amount of greens that are picked and pulled and murdered daily without any thought, and just, and very anti to meat eaters, the same people who do exactly the same things that they do. Very, very imbalanced. If you want to be a proper participant on Mother Earth, start participating. Don't just talk about it, be about it. So I just wanted to say that. So even to all those, it isn't a judgment, it is just a conversation. And coming from someone who's an agriculturalist and my brother is a botanist, we come from very healthy island people who actually kept a lot of the practices from our ancient indigenous people, which I'm grateful. And I just suggest that you start to take off the hashtags and start to actually be the hashtag, okay? So don't talk about it, just participate. And be more mindful and recycle. Overstand and understand by your participation in upholding the same principles that you are calling for others to do, that you will change the interaction and how the earth sees you and perceives you. She sees what we're doing, and she knows who is actually in alignment with her. And I know when someone's a gardener. Even my ex-Nazi, I can share a story about that, because my ex-Nazi, as chaotic as he was with me, he came from farmers. His family used to be sharecroppers. And what's interesting with my ex-Nazi is my plants would love him. Every time he would walk in the house, they would bend to him. They recognized his soul. They recognized his ancestry. So by the nature of him coming in and watering them, they really took to him well. He was chaotic in other ways, but they remember who you are based on the behavior and how you take care of them. They'll remember you through your children. They'll remember you through your grandchildren. It's a beautiful, everlasting cycle. So participate and be the change you want to see in the world. And again, take away the hashtags and you be the hashtag. I don't want you talking about it anymore. I want you to participate. And the Amazon is going to replenish herself as she always does. But you have a garden and you have trees right outside your house right now that need to be tended and respected and honored. Stop going in other people's business and other people's backyards. That's what the United Snakes will promote. Why don't you take care of the very nature in your own hood? And for those living in buildings and saying they don't have a stake in their areas, I disagree. I've walked in places in the Bronx, big up to all those from New York City in the Bronx where Caribbean people moved, and I've never seen so many sunflowers everywhere. When Caribbean people would move into the Bronx, they would grow these beautiful stalks of sunflowers in all of the neighborhood. They would start planting these beautiful flowers. You don't have to just be complicit in the barren of living in a city. You can actually plant things, and actually you can actually create groups of children and people to participate in doing this. I remember Project Garden, what was it? Brooklyn had Project, who's from Brooklyn in here? Brooklyn, who's from Brooklyn? They used to have Project, what was it called? Project Garden? Some of you of that age when they did that, I think you guys remember. Remember it was Project Garden when they would go to certain places, urban places in Brooklyn, and were planting trees and actually plants. And they were taking care of, and they would take old lots and they were planting. Some of you remember that. Remember they used to take the old parking lots that were like abandoned and make them into these huge community gardens? Now, I forgot what it was called. Why don't you start to do that? There isn't any excuse why. You remember that? Yes, it was so cool. They were going in and making like car lots into these beautiful, and you see all these amazing like fresh greens and everything. And it was so cool. And you know what happened? As soon as they would start doing that, all the drug dealers and people who were insidious started to be more respectful of their neighborhood. They wouldn't stand on their block selling drugs anymore. They'd go over a couple blocks over. I don't think you guys remember, some of you remember that. The drug dealers didn't even feel right because they were telepathically in sync with the plants. We're talking to them saying, you don't do that naughtiness in our neighborhood. You take that down the block. And the drug dealers would go 2 and 3 blocks down the point. They were whispered to. It's so beautiful. Be connected to the very life that you say you want to sustain. Stop projecting things that aren't part of your well-being. And I'm not criticizing meat eaters and I'm not criticizing vegans, but I'm making you self-aware that you aren't living pious and self-righteous if you're not acknowledging that you're both parasiting off the very life that you say that you're not. Just acknowledge if you're going to consume flesh, buy locally, overstand and understand that there is a life given to be able to sustain your family, and always pray or give honor to that life. The same with vegans. If you are going and massively shopping at markets where people pull from the root like beets and things like that, give honor and respect to the very life that has been given to sustain yourself. They are one and the same. I don't deem a plant any less than an animal. That's where I'm balanced. All right? So family, I love you. The concert, I already have the concert. The conference is on and underway. You will actually get a chance to, if you wanted to attend the conference 2019 in New Orleans, you will get, I actually will have everything up and open and everything tomorrow. So tomorrow is a reveal of the conference. It's going to be beautiful. For all of you who are joining us in New Orleans, it's going to be amazing fall time. And I will have that. It was supposed to be Friday, but it's not the proper day. It's supposed to be on Saturn day. And big up to Saturn who's coming in. And also for those who are dealing with the collapse of the timeline, let me just state this at the end because I can kind of sidebar. I stayed on task. You gonna be in Louisiana tomorrow, warrior? That's what I'm talking about. Nolens. I was talking about the collapse of the timeline, and for those who are, there was 2 things I was supposed to make an announcement about. For those who participated in the Twin Flame manifestation last Friday, today was the day that you most likely, as some of us put in our requirements, in our letters, or in our our list, what would happen on the 7th day. So I will say to you, family, the 7th day happened, and Damon Dash mentioned, they know that Damon Dash mentioned, and they got big up to Damon Dash. Damon Dash is like, what does he call himself? The BYOB, be your own boss. I used to have a crush on Damon Dash. Big up to Damon Dash. Come on, Damon. I'm glad you came to our side. I might see you at the conference. Anyway, anyways, so those who did the manifestation today, some of us, I got a call at 2 o'clock in the morning. No, yeah, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm just letting you know, family, that actually worked. So for all those who put that, some people put in their list that they'll know it's their twin flame by when they come. So if you did for the twin flame, you would have gotten a phone call today, or I got mine exactly 1 o'clock in the morning. It was crazy. So it's interesting, and I can't say anymore because it's so much more than that. So anyway, big up to all those who enjoyed doing the manifestation. Your twin flame is on and popping. You know, I don't do anything without vetting it out, and it's vetted out. And also for those who are dealing with the convergence, you got to credit your utilities. Oh, you got a credit on one of your utilities? That's what I'm talking about, Veronica. Also for those who are dealing with the convergence, another thing, and I'll probably make a whole video on this because it needs to be detailed. All of the lines have been drawn. So the dark ones and the light ones are only hanging out with one another. So if someone's been removed from your life, it's been for a good reason. And whoever is coming into your life will be in alignment with you. We literally, if you watch the dark crystals, you see that the mystics only lived amongst other mystics. The Skeksis only lived amongst other Skeksis before the convergence. So before the final convergence of the twin flames, they live separately. So what you're seeing with the convergence, you aren't able to be with people outside of your frequency. I think I've talked about that a little bit with the last video. But all those who, even your intolerability, you're starting to be intolerable of anyone who doesn't match you. I literally just was severing ties, moving. I have zero tolerance. Many of you experiencing it because I talked to you. We have a zero tolerance right now for all those out of alignment. It's literally the convergence has put us in a first straight line of those who are in the same frequency as ourselves. So big up to those who are experiencing actually participating in cutting off all those ties that aren't in alignment for you. It's not even to the point where we have a tolerance for it. I couldn't even believe how intolerant, like literally, I've changed with the merge, because you know how I merged with all these fleurs, FleurBrun over there, FleurBrun over there, FleurBrun over there, FleurBrun over there. I've merged. I'm even wearing this on another hand. I never did that before. The FleurBrun that, whatever timeline she merged from, she wears the bracelet on the right arm. I always wear it on the left. It's interesting, and I got another another burn on my knuckle. Whatever the other one's doing, she burns herself because I got a burn on my knuckle, and I don't even know on this finger, my ring finger. I got a burn on there. I was like, where's these burns coming from? So it's so amazing. So the convergence is on and popping. It's okay for you to stay in alignment with people like yourself. You're gonna have zero tolerance. It's going to happen, and be okay with it. You don't have to wish someone unwell. You know, I'm always healthy with that. If, excuse me, hold on. Let me do water. Oxygen water. Hold on, family. Let me put my phone down. Let me put my phone down. I wanted to talk to you guys about that. I'll probably do a video about that, but tomorrow, for all those who are attending the conference, yes, the conference information is already done. It's completed. The actual kickoff day for conference sales will be tomorrow. And like I said, we'll be interested. So those are on the announcements. I'm going to make another video on the convergence and how it's playing out, probably in greater detail. But just be okay with severing ties because it's happening. And if you aren't resonating with someone, don't, be okay with it. As long as it's not coming from a place of you being mean or you just kicking somebody out because they wear blue nail polish on a day they're supposed to wear red. I mean, that's just make sure it's rational, okay? Because I think people are just intolerant now based on you converging with a part of yourself. Okay, so just be mindful of that and enjoy. So big up to those who are twinning right now or had letters or notes or or signals from their twins, smoke signals from your twin, it's coming on. So, yes, can you please put a like? Jose likes the likes. Please put a like if you like this video. I really appreciate it. You know what it is, Jose? Even when I go to other people's live feeds, I always forget to put the like. Like if they mention it on the feed, I'll remember. But it's almost like when you jump into the live, I've done it. So I know when I jump into a live, I don't pay attention to likes because I'm just listening to the feed and interacting. So a lot of times I don't put likes. But now that I noticed, like even on my feed, I was like, now I understand why. Because it's just, you know, and I didn't pay attention before because, you know, YouTube, you know, now leaves me the heck alone because I have more likes on my video. I don't know if they were bothering me. I just think they bother me every once in a while. But I appreciate the likes that you put on here. And thank you for all those who make, thank you for all those who made donations to the sanctuary. The sanctuary isn't affected by the fires in the rainforest. Some people were asking me that. The farm that is located in Brazil is not being affected by the rainforest fires, okay? So remember, just like I'm outside of the matrix here, wherever I coexist or have anywhere where my sanctuary is gonna be, it's gonna be outside. So big up to those. Thank you so much. I appreciate for all those who've been giving donations to, I think the niece's saying they were gonna do the animal sanctuary, maybe people donate more. So I told the girls, I told my nieces, I said, whatever's donated will go to their, they're going to create an animal sanctuary. So I said that those donations directly, especially now I know it has to do with the animal sanctuary, will go directly to the Nistas. So they will be able to procure any medicines for the animals, any bandages, anything necessary, and any veterinary costs until we get a veterinary on site. So I want to thank everybody who's been helpful, helpful to, and donated to that. They really, and they appreciate it. So thank you. All right, family. So I'm out. I'm excited. and don't cry for the forest. She'll be fine. It needs to happen. It's, again, if you watch the scene, if anybody has gotten a chance to watch the scene from Beloved with Oprah Winfrey, that movie didn't get a lot of credit, but it was actually a very good movie. If you watch the movie from Beloved and you watch the one scene, I guess you can bring it up I think you can see it on YouTube. You see the scene when a mother's afraid and the master's coming on the horses, or they're coming to get her babies. And rather than giving off her baby, she kills every one of her children, the baby to the children. And people thought it was horrific, but they don't realize if you've been so abused and you want to protect your own, sometimes you just remove what they want. And it's as horrific as it seems as a mother doing that. This is what's happening with the forest in Brazil. It's being raped, family. The matriarchy is so disrespected there. There isn't any honor. Men run through women in South America like they go to the bathroom, okay? They rape children over there. Men fly up from Europe to buy little brown girls and rape them. And mothers sell their little girls because they don't have any money. That is why that scene from Beloved means so much. And that is why the rainforest is burning. Whether it's happening from the lava flow underneath the ground, which I know it's happening, or it is happening from someone setting fire to it, it is all karmically based because they have been non-respectful of the matriarchy, and the flowers and the life in the forest and those trees represent the matriarchy. So if you're not going to respect it, you won't have access to it. All right? Be good to nature, be good to yourselves, and start growing your own stuff. And maybe we'll have a nature, especially when I move to the sanctuary, we'll have like nature meetings and we'll talk about, and we'll exchange seeds, okay? And don't just talk about it, you be about it. All right, family, have a masterful weekend. I love you. And happy twinning. We'll talk again. And I'll see you tomorrow for the conference release. Peace. Peace, peace, peace.